All right. Tonight, I don't know how long we're going to go. I was told that I could talk as long as short as I want to. Never do that. Be a bad choice. I have a couple of topics that I want to do. One of the places I'm leading to, especially this weekend, there's two main things I want to talk about. One is something I call focusing on the weightier matters of the Torah. And the other one is maybe in some ways directly connected, and I hope I can connect the two, but in some ways completely different as well. I want to talk about the restoration, but mainly, which is a major part of it, mainly I want to focus on what I guess some of us would call this apologetics. It's my contention, and I'll show you here in just a minute, that we may train our children to be able to go home from Sunday school, especially if you're in this walk. You all know what I talk about. Come home, may be able to convince their neighbor or have a discussion with their neighbor about the sliver of the moon or the conjunction or when Pesach starts and how to properly articulate the vowels and consonants of ancient Hebrew. They may be able to do that. But when the average person in America walks up to them and says, "How do you know God even exists?" Can they answer that question? Most of the time, the adults can't either. I'm not, looking at anybody or picking on anybody, but most of the time, if someone said to you, "Prove to me God exists," could you defend your father and be able to show them that we can prove that as much as we can prove anything else that we can prove it? And so I want to deal with some of the tough questions later on. But I'm going to do this, and this is going to be kind of the setup tonight, because I'm going to propose to you something that's been a major part of my ministry from the very beginning. And that is, I know you've heard this before, but I'm going to put it another way, that every word in your Bible is revealed in the natural things of creation in the beginning. Now, you've all heard us quote Bible verses in Isaiah that the end is revealed out of the beginning and so forth, and that is absolutely true. But my contention to you is that for 2,000 years we've argued doctrine and theology back and forth between Baptists and Pentecostals and evangelicals and non-evangelicals, and you can just go on and name all the various 6,500 different religious systems and over 49,000 different Christian denominations in the world right now. As I'm speaking to you, and it keeps going up every year. I've had to change this 11 times in the past 30 some odd years of ministry because it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. Over 49,000 different denominations across the world. And so I want to show you through the natural creation that the Father has a way of dealing with that, has a way of showing us these things. And of course, there's going to be an attack on that as well. Now let's start with this. I have to start with this because I said I would. That Bill and I probably brought some of our newer things as much as we could when you're traveling just on planes. And the only thing I brought, for those of you who care, the only thing that I brought was the 3 newest things for my ministry. That's all I brought. A book called The Gifts from the Bridegroom, Equipping the Saints for the Coming of the Messiah. And that's all about the restoration of the gifts of the Spirit. Yes, I'm going to show you, I want to show you that they need to be restored. Something happened along the way. Okay? Something, especially, some of those gifts, a couple of them. Gee, nobody else wants to talk about it. How they went from something sung unto I'll leave it right there, okay? You know what I mean? And so I don't think we get to pick and choose in this restoration. And I can assure you, if you've never heard this word before, that we are indeed in the midst of restoration. That is exactly what we're in the midst of. And it is a real thing that's going on right now, and primarily because of 3 little words in the beginning. I told you I was going to start with the slides. I changed my mind already. Why? Because I'm the teacher. What's Alvin going to do? Fire me? Okay, these 3 little words are the problem. And then began. There's your problem right there. Dot, dot, dot. Those 3 little words appearing 5 times in the opening 11 chapters of Genesis. By the way, I also have a teaching. I can see I went right past it. The newest thing are the books. I finished the Genesis series. For those of you who have the Genesis series, chapter 7 and 11 is finally done. It's like 50. The total is about 120 CDs or something, plus the books, and a word-by-word study of 1 Corinthians. The reason why I brought that, the reason why I did that is because every New Testament theologian that I am aware of all state that every one of the controversial things that Paul says that are scattered around Galatians, Romans, Ephesians, and Colossians are actually all in the book of 1 Corinthians. Every one of them. So I decided, why don't we just go right for it and go through every one of those controversial things, one word, one verse at a time, all 16 chapters of Corinthians. 1 Corinthians is very comprehensive. Now that I did what I said I was going to do, now let's go on. And men began. This is a like kind of statement, which I hope to show you all a little bit later what that's all about. But the problem is this. This is a truth. Every time you read this phrase, chaos ensues very quickly. Every time. Things break up and fall apart and collapse into an accelerated state of corruption, which we call the second law of thermodynamics, which is otherwise known as entropy. And it wasn't the lemons, and it wasn't the flowers, and it wasn't the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees that caused it. It was those guys. That is the truth that the Father knows, but I'm also going to suggest that the adversary knows the same truth. The adversary knows that the problem on this earth is men. That's who he blames it on this way. It's men. They both know the same truth. It's what they intend to solve the problem with. It's the difference. They both know that men are the problem. The adversary wants to solve it by eliminating the man. The Father wants to solve it by redeeming the man. Huge difference between those two things. One wants to get rid of us all. I'll just solve the problem. I'll just whack him. Which is a mafia term, I hope. Okay. He wants to just get rid of us all. And some of you know some of the plans concerning all of that. But that's not the Father's heart. The Father wants to redeem man. So every time man messes up, which is about every 21 to 33 seconds, something like that. Okay? Every time man messes up, the Father has to restore what he did. And there's one simple little reason why. Some of you know my ministry know simplify things. KISS, whatever term you want to use. Take it out of the arena of highbrow intellectual religious elitism and bring it back to the person that works hard in the field every day. Because that's the intellectuals, the true intellectuals in the world, are the ones that get up and raise families and children. They work hard to maintain a relationship with their wife and to take care of their kids and make sure that gets passed down to the next generation. That's the intelligent people. That's the people that Father is talking to, not the intellectual elites. They are the problem. And I'm not going to go into the whole pinheaded intellectual thing, but the fact is, this is also an evolutionary term because it's going to pass down to every generation. See, one of the things you get out of the first 3 chapters of Genesis, which is a lot of things, of course, but one of the 3 things that you get is that the Father calls each day good. When the Father's done with the day, he calls it good. Now here's your problem. The problem right there is that we're not even going by the notes, obviously. You better know what I did with the pen. Here we go. The Father, at the end of each day, calls it good. It is good, right? Which in Hebrew is? Okay, tov. I'm going to suggest you, no, it is not. Oh, no. That's how most of the translations come out, because that's the nature of translations. I'm not one of those kind of people that are coming here saying, well, unless you know the Hebrew, you're stupid and you can't know your Bible at all. One of the things I'm trying to show is that the Father knows that. The Father knows that not everybody in the world knows Hebrew. I know this is a shock to the average intellectual elite out there, or a shock to the one who actually believes that if you don't understand Hebrew, you can't know your Bible. I don't know how many people I hear say that. I used to say that. And I realized that, no. What do you do about all the millions and millions of people who don't know a lick of Greek and don't know a lick of Hebrew? That's why I believe the Father took those things and put them in the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. Because no matter where you live on planet Earth, Dan, how many times you heard me say this? No matter where you live on Earth, those are the displays that you get every time you look outside your window. Our Father was smart enough not to take His word and only give it to Japanese banjo players. Because he realized that there's not very many Japanese banjo players in the world. And the reason why is because the Japanese people are smart enough not to even play banjos. If you understand, that's not the point. The point is, he put it in the things that everybody can see, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by what? The things that are made. And see, intellectual elitism comes along and tries to convince everybody, unless you come to me, and we can be guilty of this in this walk as well, the individual teachers, unless you come to me. No, the Father's displayed it everywhere you look. The awesomeness of His grace from the very beginning. And so, the translations are the problem, but that's the nature of translations. It's not necessarily a worldwide satanic plot. As a matter of fact, I think the Father knew that His Word would be translated into German and French and Spanish, and there'd be all kinds of translations. So He put the most important relative things about His work in this world in all of those translations. So nobody could read it without seeing, I'm a sinner and I fall short of the glory of God. Amen. And I need a Redeemer. Amen. I need that, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about in the apologetics a little bit later. Not understanding these other people that are on the internet and so forth, not understanding how a person dying 2,000 years ago can save them now. That's one of the most, see, what I'm going to do later is take the most oft-asked questions about their denial of God and deal with those issues, because this is what our young people are going to be facing. The next generation. Not so much conjunctions or slivers, okay, but it's going to be, I don't even know if I can prove there is a God. I was talking to Bill earlier today about how I was watching The Blaze. Somebody may be familiar with The Blaze, going back. I was watching The Blaze, and he was talking about an interview that he had with a man by the name of Penn Jillette. How many know who Penn Jillette is? Some of you know. I've seen Penn and Teller before, but he's the Penn part of Penn and Teller. They're magicians. Okay? He's the tall one. All right? And he asked him why he was an atheist. And he went through the very sad story, which I'm not going to go into right now, about why he turned out to be an atheist, and it's going to be in perfect harmony with everything I'm already prepared to do in this new series coming out a couple months now on apologetics. And that is that I don't know how many times people will tell you that it's because of science and it's because of the evidence that they don't believe in God. And that's not true. And it's never been true. Virtually every time it's something personal. Something personal that happened in their lives. The facade, the great ruse is science and no evidence. And that's just not true, because we're going to go over a lot of those things tomorrow or Saturday or whatever, or Sunday. We're going to go over a lot of those things. Because the reality is they must face it hasn't got anything to do with it. It's always something personal that happened to them in their lives that either just severely disappointed them about whatever's running the universe or whoever's running the universe. That's always the reason. Okay, I get off the track, but this is what's happened. Okay, good. Go back to the days of the week, because we're a perfect display of what's going on now. You understand? That as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man, that everything in the end should be out of the beginning. So everything that goes on in that creation in the beginning is going to be a picture, it's going to be a paradigm, it's going to be a model of everything in the end. So we go to the beginning, and we see that when He's finished with a particular day, He calls it good. Day one is good. But He doesn't call it very good. Now I'm going to ask you all a question. It's rhetorical, so that means don't yell it out. But I do want you to think about it. I do want you to ignore it. If someone came up to you and said, now if I had said that back in the 1960s, what would be the next line? Smile, you're on camera. Come on, folks, wake up. Did you forget the 60s already? Okay, no, somebody going, that's sexy. If someone came up to you and said that you could only choose one word, let's say your life's on the line. You only have one word to describe the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. You only get to choose one single word. Don't yell it out. What word do you think that would be? Now remember, it's not just people that's in this universe. There are birds and bees and dirt and clouds and galaxies and animals and all kinds of things. I'm going to suggest to you, and I hope to convince you in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to suggest to you that word would naturally be life. Life. And not just life, but abundant life. Yeshua said, I came into this world, you might have, life. And not only life, but abundant life. Every commandment, every ordinance, every statute is designed by our Father from the beginning, because He only transcends time to produce and reproduce life in this world. And so every commandment is designed to do that. And so if something violates that, in Father's eyes, it's an abomination unto God. For example, homosexuality is an abomination. Why? Is it because they're dirty or they're immoral? Well, heterosexuals are too, so we'd fall right in line with that. No, it's because it stops what? Life. Of course he hates it. Of course it's an abomination. It stops life, and he is into life. And so, therefore, if I said to you, if you had to describe the adversary with one word, what do you think that'd be? Devil. He came to steal and kill and destroy. So the Father's into life. So everything he does, whether we understand it or not, is designed to produce life. He sees the whole parade. We only see one little thing that goes by us, one band or one fire truck at a time. And so we have a tendency to judge the whole parade on the fire truck that just went by. We think the whole parade's going to throw taffy at the fire engine. Come to find out, if you were a little kid, you were very disappointed when the marching band came by, you didn't get any candy. But if that's all you saw went by, you thought the whole parade was just this marching band. I'm never going to that parade again. Do you see what I'm saying? But the Father knows the parade from the beginning to the end. When I was a kid, I never knew, where did the parade go? Where did it come from? It just came from nowhere. That's what you thought when you were 8 years old on the side of the street. And so he designs every day to produce life. And so every day is good, but it's not very good. Because the concept of tov meod in Hebrew is something that means can produce life now. It's a life word. Each day cannot produce life. Think about it. Day number 1 cannot produce life. It's good, which means in the Father's eyes is something complete for its purpose. Good is not an emotional term in the Bible, my friends. Does it sound like I'm yelling at you? Is everybody okay? I thought I was yelling. Good is not an emotional term, like it is in America. My grandmother's soup is good. God is good all the time. Which means what? God is at least as good as my grandmother's chicken soup. You're going to say we're using the same word to describe the Creator as we are soup for Keith's sake. Okay? Some of you got that one. Some of you didn't last time. And so, in Hebrew, it means something completed for its purpose. In the language in which the people speak, something completed for its purpose. So when the Father's done with something, and it's complete, it's for its purpose, which means don't add to it, don't take away from it. I probably talked a little bit about this the last time I was here, a couple of years ago maybe, but he's saying it is good. But day 1 doesn't have any life in it. Day 2, no life. Day 3, no life. It's only later, when you put them all together, now he says, it is finished, which is the third law of thermodynamics, in perfect harmony with the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of conservation of mass and energy. There's nothing new being created, and nothing's being destroyed. That's the reality of our universe from what we can see. And so our Father, once again, is in perfect harmony with that. And so when he gets to the word very good, what he's saying is everything can produce life now. See, the water can't produce life until he fills it with the sea creatures, right? The air can't produce life until he fills it with the fowl flying in the heavens. The ground can't produce life until he puts the seed and the root and the herb-bearing plants in it. Now it all can produce life. Now it's all very good. And so the Father, here's the point. The Father did it right in the first place. Can we all agree with that? The Father did it right in the first place and then said later on that the end is revealed out of the way he did it right in the first place. So when men come along and mess it up, what does he got to do? He's got to restore it. And so he prophesies of this generation after generation. It's not the rest of the biological creation that caused the problem. It was the men. And the major reason why, I've got to lay this foundation. The major reason why is because humans are endowed with choice and the rest of the creation is not. The rest of the creation has no choice but to do what it does. I'm starting to get it. Okay? And so therefore the Father said, now if I want to maintain something throughout generation after generation, if I want to maintain the same truth, the same picture, the same paradigm, the same model throughout the generations, am I going to give it to the ever-changing humans? That would not be very smart, and some of you know that God is smarter than we are. Okay? That would not be very smart. And so therefore he embedded it in the things that have no choice but to do what they were designed to do. And the only change would be when men come along and mutate it. And when that happens, the Father has to restore it. Why? Because he did it right in the first place. Once again, So it wasn't the ones who didn't have a choice. So I'm going to use lemons to describe the rest of the biological creation. The rest of the biological creation every day gets up and keeps the commandments of God. The way the original biological creation was designed, they're still doing the same thing today as they did in the beginning. That's why he gave his words to those who keep those things. And he didn't give it to the ones who can get up every morning and say, I don't want to follow you, I don't like you, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So he's smart enough to embed it in the rest of the creation. So when things mess up, it's at the fault of the lemons. I'm just using lemons to describe all the rest of the creation. No. You look out into the creation, and because the rest of the creation is keeping the commandments of their God, we are living and breathing on this earth right now. The rest of the creation did not fall for the idea that the commandments are done away with 2,000 years ago on a cross. Only those who have options of choice concluded that. But the rest of the creation doesn't do that. It's still doing what it's designed to do in the beginning. Because of that, we're living and breathing and have our lives right now. So I'm going to ask you, when you look out at the creation and you see lemons keeping the commandments of God, are they technically legalists? Serious question. No, yeah, that's the right answer, Alvin. Certainly. Certainly they are, because that's how we define legalism. Those who are believers, but yet they're still keeping the commandments. Those are legalists. Well, the whole rest of the creation is doing that. We're the only ones that say no. So what I'm trying to say is that the Father has displayed these things in the natural graces from the very beginning. And if we belong to any religious system or any non-religious system that believes that this word we call the Bible, excuse me, hope it doesn't wig out on me. Forgot to bring it over with me. This word we call the Bible contradicts the physics of the universe. And we teach our kids that those things in the beginning really didn't happen literally, they're just stories. What in the world are we doing? It's not just that we're contradicting the Bible, but we're destroying every paradigm, every model that he gave of the end. Because it was all there in the beginning. The reality is, if the Bible says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. If the days of Noah were not what they said they are, then how can we know what's going on in the end times? How can we possibly know what's going on prophetically if the things in Noah's time weren't really literal, they didn't really happen that way? And now you can see where that's going, can't you? And when you do that, that's why you have 50 different versions of end time prophecies, or at least one of the reasons why you do, is because you've corrupted the beginning. We're supposed to be a picture of the end. So we see that all those days are screaming out to us saying, day number 1 saying, I need day number 2. Day number 2 is saying, I need day number 3, and number 4, number 5. I need all those days because I am good, but I can't produce life without all the other days. Now this is true of the body of Messiah. Same exact thing in the body of Messiah. Because we may be individually good. In other words, we're completed for our purpose, which is something we may talk about later, we may not, about how I do believe that when you receive the Messiah as your Redeemer, your Lord, your Savior, that you've got everything you need. Now it's just a matter of learning, growing, and bringing those things out. I don't think you're waiting around, because nothing else in the creation works that way. A piece of granite has everything it needs to be a piece of granite. But if the piece of granite is just sitting there on the floor doing nothing, its energy at rest, it's not producing anything. So that piece of granite needs to be put in a position to be moved. That's called potential energy. If I take that rock and I put it on the table, right at the edge of the table, right there, Alan, potential energy. I'll put that rock in a position where it can be moved now. And then now all I do is wait for something greater than the rock to push it. That's called kinetic energy. And I hope to show you later that that's exactly how the Spirit of God works. The Holy Spirit works exactly the same way as energy does. I'm not saying the Holy Spirit gives energy, I'm saying it works exactly the same. And when we understand how our universe works, we can understand everything about the one who created the universe. Now, based upon the law of like kind, if the Word of God created all things, if the Word of God, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, framed the world and all that is in it, if it all came forth from that, then everything that came forth will be like that it came forth from. I remember some of you going, I remember when I was in college and high school, I did a lot of acting. I was in a lot of plays, and I loved to do those kind of things. And back in the early 70s, the most popular show on Broadway was a show called The Fantastics. If you're living there again, or living in the New York area, if you cared anything about that, I didn't live in New York, but it was the most popular play there. And in this play was a very popular song called Try to Remember the Time in September, follow. Remember the song? That was just the big hit from the play. But one of the major songs in it was Plant a Turnip, Get a Turnip, Plant a Radish, Get a Radish. And so let's move on, because that's going to be the premise. Plant a turnip, get a turnip, plant a radish, get a radish. It really isn't rocket science. Only religious people come along and make things so complicated that of course you got to go to them to understand what it says. So I'm going to turn this thing on. National Geographic. Stop a minute. This is for our kids, especially. This is something I am going to ask you to answer. So I'm going to put you on the spot. If someone came up to you and said, name the 3 fastest growing religions in the world, name some ones that you think would be the fastest growing religions in the world. Just fire them out, not slowly. Islam, okay, that's correct. I'm going to put my finger up when it's correct. That is one. Number 2? No, they only think so. No? There you go, Christianity. That's still happening. That's still happening. Can you name one more? No. Guess what it is? This is a poll done by the National Geographic, April 22nd, 2016. Here it is. No religion at all. Atheist. The reason why it doesn't show up in a lot of other polling is because they don't consider it to be a religion or a faith. And so, and the major reason why atheism and no religion whatsoever is one of the top 3 fastest growing religions in the world is because of a little thing called the internet. The ability for people to put out myriads of YouTubes saying things that they know not of. And so too many of us assume that if it's on the internet, well, it must be true. It's on the internet. How do you know it's true? Well, it was on YouTube. Some of them, you know, what I'm talking about this is very sad that our education system is moving toward the internet. You know Encyclopedia Britannica? They don't have books anymore. Everything's on the internet. I got lost in Detroit one time, and my GPS just kept going, recalculate, and so forth. And I was lost for like an hour. I couldn't beat my way out of the paper bag. I mean, the downtown streets of Detroit, it's like 5 or 6 years ago, paper blowing across the roads, not a person in sight, windows smashed open, curtains flying out. You know the scene. And I'm driving down street after street, and I'm really getting worried after a while. I can't get out of here without a GPS. So finally, I found a 7-Eleven. Hallelujah! A 7-Eleven! Yay! Pulled in the 7-Eleven. Where are your maps? Well, we don't carry maps because everybody has a GPS. Okay? That concerns me, folks. That we can't find our way out of a paper bag. And so this is the fastest growing religion because of this, because these kids are easily influenced by someone getting on the YouTube telling them why there is no God. And I guarantee you can be on them for the rest of your life and never stop watching YouTube videos giving you the proof why there's no giant sky daddy in the heavens. That's the most popular term. I think it was coined by Richard Dawkins. Coined that term, giant sky daddy in the heavens. And the sad part about it is, and I'm not trying to put a heavy guilt trip on everybody, but the sad part about it is they go to their moms and dads and they can't answer the questions. They go to their Sunday school teacher, and God forbid, no disrespect, but because it's absolutely true. Well, you know, Jesus died. I mean, you know, that's what they tell them. And is that true? Well, of course he did. Okay? But that's not going to answer what the adversary is doing to our next generation. Our next generation is being eaten up by what I believe is still true. Remember back in the 80s and the early part of the 90s, if you remember back those days, that the beast of Revelation 13:18 was a 3-story computer in Brussels, Belgium. Do you remember those days? And that turned out to actually be not even true, by the way. Okay, specifically in Brussels, Belgium, a 3-story computer, not true. But nonetheless, I still believe it's true. I don't have time to go into prophetic things here. That's Bill's area of expertise. I'm not going to do that. But I still believe that this is going to be what takes this world down, not just this country, but this world down. That very soon we're going to enter into an era where we have to go to it for everything. Everything. To buy, to sell. I mean, whatever. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not a prophetic person, I don't make that kind of statements. But moving on. Baby boomers, that would be everybody born 1946 to 1962, which may include some of us in this room. Okay? Born in that particular area, but baby boomers in particular grew up near the edge of the final age of an America in which most people were part or associated with some kind of faith or God-believing religion. As a whole, we were not taught the tenets of atheism or evolution, much less the dangers thereof. And because atheism, as some of you well know, is indeed a faith. It is a religious system. And hopefully we can get into these things a little bit later. I'm just setting these things up right now. I want you to remember something that Yeshua said. This is so incredibly important because right now, because of the internet, right now because we get news instantaneously, right now because of Fox. I don't care if it's a conservative news broadcast or a liberal one. They're all the same to me. All on the tape, all scam, in my opinion. I don't believe anyone. Don't believe anyone. And I'm going to come up to something we're going to talk about a little bit later. Remind me if I don't, but it's just my opinion. Know the person, read the book. I'll say it again. Know the person, read the book. You can't trust one single thing you see on the internet. Because everything on the internet can be manipulated. It doesn't matter whether it's conservative or liberal, they both do the same thing. People who play videos, exposing other people who Photoshop their videos. How do you know they didn't Photoshop their videos? Revealing the ones who Photoshop their videos. You can't, everything can be manipulated. Holograms, all this kind of stuff. And so therefore we have a lot of even Hebrew roots people sitting around the world. I call them man cave Bible detectives. That's just my little word. You can choose whatever you want to. Some of you already know what I mean by that statement. Generally they're men. There's women's too, but generally they're men sitting around with no jobs, nothing to do, sitting around their offices, researching things day after day, coming up with something new that nobody ever knew before on planet Earth until today. And then they produce a bunch of stuff and they send it out to everybody. And if you dare have one dissenting comment about anything and say, oh, you end up on their list. And you know what list that is. I can't say it here. You end up on that list and you're just the subject of everything they write from that point forward because you didn't go along with that. And see, it's real brave to sit in a room somewhere, who knows where it's at, and write stuff about people and write stuff about other ministries. Now, it's real brave of them to do that. But see, the reality is, when I come to a place like this is why I will never stop doing this until the next terrible RV accident takes me. No, that's a terrible confession. I'm sorry I did that. But I will never stop doing this because when I come to a place like this, I know Alvin is not Photoshop.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not. I can hug Brenda, I can hug Alvin, and see, I know them. Know the person. I know Bill, my whole bestest friend in the world. And so if anybody comes up to me on the internet or says something on the internet about Bill, I say, excuse me, do you know Bill Clinton? Do you know him? No, but I know I watched his video. Before you go saying that he said this, somebody can even say something that I know Bill well enough, I know Bill well enough that if something said that Bill said that, I know how he talks. I know his, the way he acts, and I know Bill would never say that. You took something he did say, and you manipulated, and you twisted, and it came out what you wanted to hear it. And you got real brave. But I guarantee you, if you were standing face-to-face, mano a mano, panim with Bill right now, you wouldn't say that, because he might punch you out right there. He might punch you right in the nose. Bill, he might say, give me that. Okay, only Bill and I know what that was all about. But see, people are real brave when they're on the internet, but when you're standing face-to-face with someone, see, that's why we need to focus on us. Body needs to focus on the body. Stop worrying about all these other things that are going on in the world that you have absolutely zero control of, which I'll show you in a few minutes if I ever get there. Because of all these things that are going on in the world right now, and I'm going to have a list of them, and I may skip it because I want to, because I'm the teacher. But of all these terrible things going on in the world, the conclusion is this. What can we do about this? The answer is not much. And the reason why is because our commission is not to remove the tares. We are told, just like the disciples, do not remove the tares. Our commission is to produce fruit. If I had to put it out in the field, that's our responsibility to go out in this world, produce fruit, because I know when I produce fruit, there's a seed in that fruit. And that seed, according to the Word of God, is the Word of God. And that's why the whole concept of like kind is so incredibly important. Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Okay, because I know that some of you have heard this message before, and you can go grab a cup of coffee or something. Okay. So moving on. The reality, of course, is that Yeshua came to bear witness to the truth. I came to bear witness to the truth, and that's a hard thing right now. Because of the internet, nobody knows what's true anymore. I just about belly laugh every time I hear somebody come on TV and accuse somebody of something. They say, what's your evidence? Well, we need to have an investigation to find out what the evidence is. Or something like that. You see, well, we have to get to the bottom of this. The bottom of what? Well, what I just accused of, where's your evidence of? I don't have any evidence. Well, we need to get to the bottom of it or discover the evidence. You know, the whole thing, well, we don't know what's in the bill until after we ask the bill. Well, whatever. Those kind of things. That is not news. That is nothing. And I don't care. I'm not taking both sides, because if there was a Democrat in office right now, the Republicans would be doing the same thing. I guarantee you, like the guy that sells cheap suits. I guarantee you the same thing would be happening. Some of you are going, who's the guy that sells cheap suits? And so this is all political scam. I don't want to get too political here, but I can't help it. Especially I have to do that now because of something that Trump just passed, right? Am I not right? That he signed a presidential order saying we can get a little more political now? I know, something like that. Okay, moving on. It's truth. Genetics and the law of like kind, the most important law, I believe, in this physical universe. It's the law that's life. This is a life law. And it always works and it never fails. The concept of genetics and the law of like kind. Living things are designed to produce after themselves. People, animals, plants, all given the exact same commandment in the beginning. Be fruitful and multiply. That's just not a revelation of how life came into existence. Every time you read things about life, from that point forward, it's all going to be based upon that same paradigm. And once you see this, you'll never not see it. It's like a lot of other things in the Bible. Once you see something, oh my goodness, this is everywhere. When Paul says, a man reaps what he sows. That's the law of like kind. When Adam says, in Adam all die, in Messiah all live. That's the law of like kind. And that's the reason why every man needs to be redeemed and begin. Is because we all come from Adam. And so based upon the law of life and like kind, we can only produce what we got from Adam. We don't have the genetic information, DNA, in us in order to produce anything other than that. So every man after that can only produce the works of Adam. And Adam was a man of flesh and blood, and what is not going to enter into the kingdom of God? Flesh and blood. Am I talking fast enough for everybody? Okay, you can always get the PowerPoints. Okay. The law of like kind. That's a fundamental thing, because in Romans chapter 6, speaking of apologetics, Romans chapter 6, Paul is using that as the basis for the phrase, you are no longer under the law, but under grace. It's the whole basis. He set it up by saying that what died on the cross was the old man of sin. Not the Torah. The commandments of God did not die on a cross. Nothing even close to it. What died was the old man of sin. Who's the oldest man? I'm not talking the one who lived the longest. Who's the oldest man? Adam. Number one. First dude. He's the old man. And because of what he did, we all inherit from him. And so we're all doomed. All of us. Yes? Even the ones dominating. Okay? All of us inherit the same thing unless you invent life on other planets, which a lot of people do in order to get out of it. But the reality is, just based upon what the scriptures say, I'm a sola scriptura guy. I believe in those 66 books, and that's something we're going to maybe talk about this afternoon, is people who have questions about the validity of all the books of the Bible. So boy, I really would like to get into it, especially doing a Q&A. I'm old-fashioned that way, so I'm just letting you know. It's not because I'm old-fashioned, but I am old-fashioned. You understand what I'm saying? To me, it's the evidence. The evidence points the other direction. But having said that, the law of like kind, things pass down from one generation to the next. So therefore, in order for you to produce His works, you have to have His seed in you. And His seed is the Word of God, which is there from the beginning. So the seed comes to everybody who's under the law from the beginning. Why? Because the seed's from the beginning. So when in Galatians, when it talks about the law until the seed comes, we assume that means when Yeshua was born in the manger. No, the seed, the Father goes to a lot of trouble to tell you that the seed is the Word of God, and the Word of God is from when? The beginning, and the Word of God was God. Okay? So He's letting you know that the seed's there from the beginning every time the seed comes. And so therefore, in order to rescue you from what happened to Adam, you receive Him. And now, Adam, because he doesn't have grace. So you're either under the law or you're under grace. If you don't have grace, you're under what? The law. And that came from Adam. And so therefore, you're doomed. So it has nothing to do with keeping commandments. As a matter of fact, as soon as you read that verse in Romans chapter 6, it says, now you can submit your members unto righteousness. Now you can do what's right. Why? Because only He does what's right. He really is the only begotten Son of God. Then why haven't we been called sons of God if He's the only begotten Son of God? Because we are in Him and He is in us. And it really is true that it is Him in us that's doing it all. The fact is, we don't understand the concept that because He is in us, now He said, because you have the ability to do that, because my DNA, my Word, is in you now, so that means now you can produce what? The Word. You couldn't do that because all you had was Adam. It's really simple genetics, rather than theology, okay, that solves the problem. The Father's embedded it in everything that you see, because I am in you, now you can produce my works. Now you can do what is righteous. Why? Because now you have the genetic information to do so. It's really simple. Lemons can never produce pineapples because there's no pineapple information in the genetics of lemons. So therefore, lemons can only produce what? I know it's hard, I know it's tough. I'm being sarcastic here because it seems like traditional elite theologians can't figure this out. See, the average person can. But too many of them don't talk to the average person like they're real smart average people. Because the Father was smart enough to take all the things of the Bible and put them in the everyday things we do for the person that lives an average life every day. Not people who sit in high ivory towers, looking down on everybody else. And this is the problem. This is not only religiously true, but it's politically true. All the politically intellectual elites, we're the dummies, we're the pawns, and they know that. I started to get political again. I'm sorry. Genetics and the law of like kind. Every culture, whether it be 5 people on the tundra of Alaska somewhere, or it be 17.6 million people in New York City, doesn't matter. Wherever you have people gathered together, that's good. Their national behavior is going to be dependent upon their national philosophy, which comes from their national theology. Any anthropologist will tell you that. Anthropologists will tell you that every culture in the world starts out with who they think is greater than themselves. For some cultures, that is a god. That is the God. For some cultures, that is gods. For some cultures, that is goddesses. For some cultures, it's just themselves. Man is the highest thing. But whatever it is, that's going to forge your national philosophy. And your national philosophy is going to eventually determine your national behavior. That's the way it works in every culture. It follows that. So let's go through some examples of this. One of the first things I want to bring up is the fact that everything living produces after itself. Why? Because it's the Word of God that produced everything. And so therefore the Word of God would be in everything that it created. Just like when you go out and see a beautiful flower or something out in the field, everything in that flower, everything in that fruit came from what? A seed in the ground. And so it's only going to produce. You may not see the seed in the ground, but you know what's there because you see the fruit. And I'm not going to go through the whole principle of the seed thing. But the reality is the Word of God works just like the rest of His living creation. The Word of God is quick and powerful. Now, some of your versions have the Word of God is living and powerful. The word there is zoe. Zoe. In this in this form here, zoe. It's from the word for zoology, zoe. Greek basically has two fundamental words that are expressed as life. Bios, which is biology, and zoe, okay, which is zoo. And so the Word of God is what? Living, and it's also energy. Energeo is that word powerful. So it will operate just like that. When we understand how living things operate, we understand how the Word of God operates. And so it operates exactly the same way because of the laws of like kind. We're going to do this some other time. This is the pattern of the garden. This is something I believe that we all have to make a decision on before we leave this room tonight or after this conference. I'm really praying that I have not even asked Bill what he's talking about. Bill didn't ask me what I'm talking about. He said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I'm thinking of invading Afghanistan all by myself. What do you think?" He said, "Oh, I was thinking the same thing." Okay. So we don't know, but I can tell you this about Bill and I. We will work hard for you this next 3 days. We'll give you everything we got. So it will be worth spending your time here. Don't swallow everything we say. We're not pointing at everybody else, saying we're right and everybody else is wrong. But nonetheless, I know what our motivations are. So before you leave here, I'm going to suggest to you, everybody has to make a decision on whether when you got to the New Testament, whether Yeshua came to change all things or he came to restore all things. One is an evolutionary term, and the other one is a cyclical term. Because that's what happens. Things get corrupt, the Father has to restore them. They corrupt themselves, the Father has to restore them. Why? Because his name is on the line. He said the end was revealed out of the beginning. And so if we get to the end and everything's changed, he can't say that, or he's a liar. So he knows that. His reputation is on the line. If you will, the idea of going back to the beginning and restoring is his legacy. It's what he realizes what he passes on to the next generation. And he solemnly chose to reveal that through people. To do it through people. But the revelation of it is in things that don't have an ability to choose, like the lilies and the flowers. Okay, theology and genetics. Deuteronomy 13 and 18. I want to give you a few examples of this. You may not think of this. Now that you understand that everything living multiplies after itself, keep that in mind as we go through just a few examples in Scripture. Deuteronomy 13 and 18, as some of you well know, are the two chapters that are the identification from the Father to you and I as to the identification of a false prophet. Deuteronomy 13 and 18 are Revelations. This is what a false prophet is. If you read them both, you'll see there's something different about each one, and there's something consistent about each one. One of them says that anyone who claims to be a prophet and prophesies falsely and leads people after other gods is a false prophet. Well, that's kind of a dumb moment, isn't it? Didn't take too much to figure that out. Someone who prophesies correctly. But then you get to the next one. It says, even if they prophesy correctly and they lead you, to read a few verses later, after other gods or another father, that is a false prophet. So what's consistent about the two that actually makes them a false prophet in both cases is they lead people to follow another father, another god, another way. Because the Father's design in the beginning was to pass these things down to each generation. Therefore, the last generation will see the same fruit as the first generation. It's wild. It's crazy. Okay? But that's what you're in the midst of right now. I can guarantee you that this is what the Father is doing. There may be some mistakes. It may not be perfect. We may be stumbling and falling over all over the place. Sometimes I tell people that the whole Hebrew roots messianic thing that's been going on for 30 or 40 years, some odd right now, demonstratively, it's always been going on. It's just like those old westerns, you know, when they be out to, you know, going across, go west, you know, toward Kansas and the flatlands, you know, they get their little bonnets on, and they're all in little wagons and so forth, and they're saying, you know how it is, you know, they're lollygagging around, you know, got the little kid, little house on the prairie kind of thing. Next thing you know, there's some Indians. Oh no, Indians. All of a sudden they come this way, there's a whole pack of Indians coming this way. And so they turn the whole train around. And as they're turning their wagons around, they're falling over and dust everywhere, and pots and pans falling all over the place, and horses, and you can't even hardly see. That's what the Messianic movement is right now. Okay? We're trying to turn around and go the other direction, and we're falling off our horses and we're making a big mess. But I guarantee you that is what the Father's doing today. That is indeed what He is doing. Okay, so make no mistake about that. So moving on with the law of like kind. Matthew 11 and John 15 are two examples where Yeshua is going to say something similar to this. I do all things my Father told me to do. Why? Deuteronomy 13. Deuteronomy 18. Okay? If not many other reasons. He had to fulfill all righteousness. Of course, that's what He's doing. But the reality is, if someone came and led them after someone other than what the Father said, that's a false prophet, even if Yeshua prophesies correctly. He's not dumb. He knows that. And in another place He says, I say all things the Father told me to say. And then in another place He says, take up your cross and... What's so hard about that? Adults? That's the problem. See, the kingdom was designed for children. The kingdom was not designed for children to understand. The problem is we got too many adults in this walk. And the adults have two things the children do not have. Pride, reputation. Boy, is that a killer in our lives. Pride and a reputation. Your 6-month-old does not have pride and a reputation yet. And I know that because I remember raising my youngest son. I remember being at the mall and holding him in my arms. Little 6-month-old baby. Absolutely no pride in anything. Didn't have a reputation to defend. Didn't have to toe some kind of party line because of that reputation. And so therefore, right in front of God and everybody, He'd just vomit all over me. A few minutes later, poop would be running down my leg. So now you've heard poop. There'll be some more words like that to come today. So because he didn't have, but see, it's adults that come along, and then we're defending things other than what's the truth. We end up towing the party line. Everybody's scared to make a move, in any one direction after that. Okay, so Yeshua says, take up your cross and follow me. Something a kid understands. Do what I do. Marx Brothers. Whatever. Walk this way. The Three Stooges, I think, did something very similar. Niagara Falls. Slow. Okay, never mind.
I remember.
But yeah, you remember. Yeah. Walk this way. So, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. By the way, it's my belief, we don't have time to do it here, that Paul's letters are all a midrash of the Tanakh. See, Western theologians, Greek-thinking people, want to read Paul. And if Paul doesn't say something verbatim, exactly as it is in whatever version of the Bible that I have, then therefore he's false. Because he didn't say it. That when Yeshua, if you want to say that that's a misquote, Yeshua misquotes more than as much as Paul does. Read sometimes the things that Yeshua quotes out of the Old Testament, then go actually read it. There's a few things added there and a few things taken away. Why? Because he's doing something very Jewish. He's midrashing. See, it's only Greeks that if you don't quote it verbatim, if you don't dot every I and cross every T, then you're false and you're misquoting. No. He's midrashing the thing. So Paul midrashes. And one of the things he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 is, follow me as I follow the Messiah. And then he says, and pass the ordinances, takes a word right out of the Tanakh and says, as I handed them down to you. So Paul's saying he followed the Messiah, and the Messiah is saying he did what the Father did. So the Messiah is doing what the Father did, Paul's doing what Yeshua did, we're doing what Paul said, follow me as I do that. What's the problem? Theologians come along a little bit later. Next thing you know, everything's got mutated. Now it's producing its own mutation. That mutation multiplies after itself, generation after generation. Pretty soon the last generation is only looking at the mutation. Nobody knows what the original used to look like anymore because we've lived with the mutation so long. Okay. Follow me. Notice Paul didn't say follow me, did he? He said follow me as I am of the Messiah. He didn't say just follow me. Follow me as I follow the Messiah. Acts chapter 20, of course, is when Paul says, I declare all the counsel of God to you. Well, once again, some of you well know, there's no New Testament yet. We don't have any of that stuff yet. He's declaring all the counsel of God unto you. Jude chapter 3 and 5, that's everything that was once delivered finally to all the saints. We have the same thing in 2 Peter 3:16, only it's done through Paul. And I'm going to move on because I have lots of things to do. Philosophy, the life view of our nation. So now we understand that our theology. Who will we follow theologically? We're following the way things were in the beginning. That's why when the Father was done with things in the beginning, he says, it is finished. Once again, that's the laws of thermodynamics. He's saying to you, everything is in the universe is in there right now. It's all done. And now everything living in the universe, what have I commanded? Everything living in the universe to do, multiply after itself. There's nothing missing. The cows aren't missing anything. The chickens aren't missing anything. The lemons aren't missing anything. They got everything they need. We don't need to add anything to it. So now teach these things to your children forever. And so we've lost that in our country. And I'm going to say the main reason why, one of the main reasons why is because we don't farm anymore. We don't farm like we used to. This has really hit my heart in the past couple of years. And that in 1920, there were 21 million farmers in America. Now in 1920, the population of America was 100 million. 1 out of every 5 people was a farmer in 1920. Farmers' revenue was 37% of our national revenue. 37%. 1 out of every 5 farmers. 2012. Less than 1% of our revenue comes from farming, and less than 2 million farmers. When all of Yeshua's parables are about sowing, and reaping, and tares, and wheat, and vineyards owners, no wonder we have such convoluted, prophetic end-time insights into things when we've lost the very thing that reveal all these models to us, taken from the very beginning. We don't farm anymore. And we've lost what farmers do as well. And this has concerned me for a long time. And so after a while, that religious nation, if I can use that term, that started out on the right track, once they begin changing things and corrupting things, next thing you know, it ends up being the national philosophy of our country. And so therefore it affects our schools, our media, our books, our marriage, our families, defense of our nation. Everything begins to change. Everything gets corrupted, mutated. Our gender, people don't even know their gender now anymore. What is it? Every time I turn around, I get a different acronym, but I think it's LGBTQ. And Q means questioning. Okay. All right. I heard LGBTNS. I heard that too. Not sure. Kind of thing. So nobody knows who they are. It affects our justice system. It affects crime, obviously. And so there, as a result of that, some of you have seen these things before, but bear with those who have not. This is George Barna. Now, raise your hand if you've ever heard of George Barna. And we're in George Barna, okay? He's got to be 112 now or something, but it never is, okay? He is a Christian pollster. He is an evangelical Christian pollster. He's not necessarily any friend of anything, has anything to do with the Old Testament Jewish necessarily, but he does a lot of polling. He's the expert at polling. In 1991, he polled 1,081, here's the crazy part, evangelical Christians. 1,081. They always choose some kind of odd number like that. Evangelical. And in 1991, of the 8 questions he asked them, 39% agreed with this. With the next 8 questions that I'm about to put up. Only 39%. So that means that 6 out of every 10 did not agree with these statements. He did the same exact question in 2011, and 9% agreed with these next 8 questions. Only 9%. Here they were. Absolute morals exists. Only 1 out of 10 evangelical Christians. This is not Presbyterians and Lutherans, you know what I'm talking about. These truths, these morals are defined in Scripture. Only 1 out of 10 agreed. Yeshua lived a sinless life. 9 out of 10 did not agree. God is all-knowing, all-powerful. 9 out of 10 did not agree. Salvation is a gift from God. 9 out of 10 did not agree. Believers responsible to share their faith. 9 out of 10 evangelicals, stretching that word, did not agree with that. That is startling to me. Hasatan is real, and the Bible is accurate in all its teachings. I can tell you I believe every one of those statements, right from the core of my heart. And I'll die defending those statements, whatever happens. But nonetheless, this is very sad. Some of you have seen me do this before. These things are, I think I did this on GLC back in March, whatever it was, okay? Not a coincidence, and America leads the world, and we're in the top 5. When I say leads, we're in the top 5 of every one of these categories. Pornography, abortion, illegal drug consumption, legal drug consumption, murder, not genocide, not mass murder, suicide. This is really a problem right now, suicide. Mainly because of our drug culture, because of the things before, the drug consumption. Our young people are killing themselves left and right. And it's almost an epidemic in this country, especially the way the United States considers something to be an epidemic. It's almost an epidemic proportions. Diseases, all diseases. Health costs, that's why that's a major thing in every election, is our health care. Why is it such an important thing? Because we all know we're sick all the time. And so it's, of course, it's the most important thing. Psychological treatment, sex crimes. We're always in the top 5. Sometimes we drop to number 2, sometimes we drop to number 4, sometimes even number 7 to 8. But within a couple of years, we're a pretty faithful bunch. We'll be back up to number 1, number 2. But there is one category of these in which we have never dropped to number 2. That is all crimes combined. All crimes combined. America has always been number 1 in the world. I'm not trying to be offensive here. I'm just trying to deal with the reality of things. So please do not be offended when I'm saying. And we are also number 1. We've never dropped to number 2 in churches, seminaries, youth groups, revivals, gospel groups, Christian rock stars, purpose-driven congregations. I'm going to see a problem here? You see a problem? I know.
Why would everybody want to come here? You know?
Yeah, well, we're still better than yeah. One would wonder about that, but we're so big. You know, when you go to other countries, you realize how they feel about you. I've had the opportunity to speak in over 50 countries now, which just totally freaks me out. I mean, I'm going, what? 1972, playing in rock bands and so on and so forth. Someone when it came up to me in 19 said, hey, Brad, you're going 30 years, you're going to be teaching Chinese people ancient Hebrew in Hong Kong. I'd have gone, no, man. No, I wouldn't do that now, because I certainly did then. But I'm totally flabbergasted by the whole thing. But when you go to other countries, they're just always in awe of how big the United States is. Even if you go to Europe, because you're in Poland, they're not thinking of the other countries. They're thinking how big you are. You go to Australia, they're thinking how big we are. That's a pretty big country, okay? And so you kind of get lost in America. They think at least there's one place you can go and kind of get lost up in the woods somewhere. America confesses to every poll to be 92% Christian, 86 to 90% Christian, according to most polls. Well, and what's the problem? We got most of the churches, most of the seminaries, most of the missionaries. Why are we leading the world in all these things? Because we do duly confess to be Christians. That is the reason why. But none of these polls are asking us if we confess to be God-fearing, Bible-believing followers of a Jewish Messiah. None of the polls are asking that question. They're asking a very general term that most people think, well, it's on our dollar bills. You know what I mean? I'm not looking at Christians going, you guys the bad guys. I'm saying there's too many people in the United States who consider the fact that they live in the United States, so they must be Christians. That's what I'm talking about. Don't get me wrong what I'm trying to say. Okay, while the light of the world was debating each other, I told you I wasn't going to pick this up, and I'm the speaker, I can do it if I want. While we are debating each other, this is the sad part. Well, we're imploding. Well, we're arguing with each other about every possible thing we can think of. As a matter of fact, Hebrew roots people, / Messianic, whatever time you put it, are the most divisive bunch in the crowd. We are professionals at dividing, right, Bill? We are, don't agree if you don't. Nothing worse than another speaker sitting in there and you're going right, they're going like it.
Just for the record, I didn't do that.
Okay. We've been in this walk a long time. Okay, 1983 for me. We've been a long time. And you've seen it going through a lot of fads, and I can see we're the most divisive bunch. We are professional dividers. We put everybody else to shame. Judaism, Christianity, we put them to shame. And the reason why is because we have 66 books to argue about, and the Jews only have 39, and the Christians only have 27. And so we just have a lot more things to divide over. We get the whole Bible, to use, and these guys define them to one or the other. But while we are doing these things, now remember there's not much we can do about this, but I'm going to bring them up to you anyway, even though I've already given you the conclusion. Our commission is to produce fruit. Number one, the world's manipulating the financial markets, falsifying economic statistics, openly pushing gay marriage agenda, selling body parts of babies, openly making martial law preparations, putting into play, I went too fast, arresting, holding U.S. citizens without trial around the world, training and supporting ISIS and Al-Qaeda. That's somehow the last part of that chopped off. Amazing to me how we have a government. I used to be a jingoist. How many know what a jingoist is? Old-fashioned term. Bill will say. Old-fashioned term. We don't use it anymore. A jingoist back in the 1700s, early part of the 1800s, was an overly patriotic person. And I was overly patriotic. Okay? But I've come to realize that all the things that are prophesied in the Scripture, if you're putting your trust in our government, if you're putting your trust in anything other than that person who died on that cross 2,000 years ago, stop it right now. Don't get all excited and freaking out and fearing over that. We trust in Him and Him alone. Put our trust in Him, gather together for the express purpose of Him, and not let all these other, because fear will create its own ramifications. So, nonetheless, these are realities that are going on in the world right now. We're the ones that trained ISIS many moons ago, and now here we are, and you all know that, curtailing free speech of Christians while expanding the rights of Muslims, forcing thousands of new laws through executive orders. Yes, I hate to say this, because I didn't, should we be political?
Come on, sure.
I didn't vote for Trump. A divine thing happened to me on the way to the polls. Because I was going there, because my wife's a big Trump fan. I was going there to vote for them. Because I didn't want us, Carolina to go and, cause such a row. Because the candidate I want wasn't there. Okay, and I'll tell you that that's getting too political. But I went there and I voted, and then I got a phone call from the precinct like 2 hours later saying you forgot to sign your. And it was too late. I had to go somewhere. I had an operation. I had my surgery then. That's what it was. So I didn't get to go. And so I didn't go. Okay. I am 100%. Just to get a little political, I am 100%, 98% behind Mr. Trump's platform, the things he believes in, the things he wants to accomplish. I'm behind that. But I just think the guy's a blooming idiot. And in other words, I agree with that aspect of the man. I'm thinking someone trained this man how to talk. Someone give him a thesaurus. Okay? Let him know that there's synonyms for beautiful. You don't have to say beautiful 47 times about a plane. First of all, his grammar is terrible. You don't use the word beautiful to describe airplanes. People, flowers. Yes, but he calls it. Okay, so give him a thesaurus. Let him look up other words for stupid. There's other synonyms for stupid. Okay, all right. Okay, moving on. But the reality is, our presidents have no business passing laws through signing executive orders.
Amen.
That is, yes, even if it's passing things that we like. You know what I mean? That's still not according to the design of our Constitution for presidents and the use of executive orders. Not just, I want to change something, I'll skip the courts, I'll skip the Congress, and so forth, and I'll just write in there and sign an executive order. Okay, nonetheless, openly setting up detention camps, purged almost 300 top U.S. generals, accelerating evolutionary theory, continuing to flood universities with communist, socialist, Muslim professors. My friends, I'm not telling you to hesitate sending your children off to higher institutions. There's a reason why I call them institutions, by the way, of education. But nonetheless, this is what they're going to be facing. They're going to be, I don't know how many times, not just in America, but particularly overseas, I've had people come up to me and say, we're frustrated. Help us, we don't know what to do. We raised our kids in the church. We sent them to Awanas, to learn Bible verses. They went to Bible studies with us, and they went off to college, and they came out the other end rejecting everything we taught as parents. And it doesn't help that the parents don't know how to tell them, what day Pesach starts, but they don't know how to tell them, prove how God exists. And so they're turning our people, preparing agendas. Agenda 21, you may hear some of these things. These things are real. Agenda 21 is real. You can go to the UN website and you can read all of their sustainable development plans for the world, and the fact that they changed it from Agenda 21 to the Agenda 2030. It's now changed to 2030. One of the things I would like to do while I'm here, since I do this in other places, and I will be here to do it, maybe tomorrow or some other time for anybody that wants to, but just have maybe a short little Area 51. For those of you who know what Area 51 is, okay? Where we can talk about these kind of things. I'm just to let you know, because you can see I'm all over the map. It's just my nature. I no longer believe in a gravity-fed universe. I'm an electric universe guy. I believe of the four known forces in the universe is the electromagnetic forces binding things together, not gravity. Okay? And just to talk about things like that. Okay? All right. Nonetheless, let's move on. Agenda 2030. In other words, now they're predicting that, which is something that I actually publicly said about 3 years ago. And it's recorded, so it's not something I'm making up after the fact. Someone pinned me down in the Q&A. When do you think the Messiah is coming? And 3 years ago, I said 2030. And they said, why? And it has to do, it doesn't have anything to do with this, because I thought it was still called Agenda 21. They moved it to 2030 because they're not accomplishing yet all the goals that they have, so they moved it to 2030. Okay, enough of that. Sorry I got into that. Some of you are going, okay, move on, Brad. Hollywood and high government officials, there's massive pedophilia going on. And some of the highest positions in Hollywood and in government. This is going on all over the place. This is very sad. We won't get into the details of this. But there's also things that we're doing to each other in this war. This is what concerns me the most. The things that the leaders, the so-called positions, people in positions of responsibility, I didn't say authority, I said responsibility. Some of us would like to think we're some kind of an authority, but the reality is we have a greater responsibility, according to James chapter 1, verses 3, verses 1 through 4. We have a much greater responsibility. So we have to be very careful about what we say, because as Jack Nicholson might say, and I can't do a good Jack Nicholson, but because lives are on the line. Lives are at stake when you do that. So we have to be careful what we say. So because of the internet and other things, we're living with photoshopping I mentioned earlier, fake news. Everybody's familiar with the term fake news now. And I gave you an example of that earlier. If you don't have anything to do that day, just go on TV and make up an accusation against someone. And by the time it gets through all the news broadcasts, it doesn't matter whether they're guilty or not, because in the public eye, they're guilty. It doesn't make any difference anymore, because you've already put it out there, the media has, and so everybody doubts the veracity of any of these things. False flags, some of you may know what false flags are. I'm not going to go into the details, I got so many things to do. The Illuminati's still around, that's still happening. We still have the Club of Rome operating. We still have the New World Order. All those kind of things we're facing in this world. We have teachings out there within the Hebrew Roots Walk and within Messianic Judaism that all the Jews are already in Israel. Then we have other people saying that there are no Jews in Israel. None of them are Jews. They all come from southern Germany, Khazars, several centuries ago, and everybody there is a Gentile. And so now we have people teaching that all the people called Israel today are actually the Gentiles, and all the Gentiles are actually Israel. And everything's swapped around. You can't imagine why. Maybe the next generation pretty soon may be confused a little bit about what's going on. And to me, the leadership has a responsibility to be leaders, to take the responsibility to do so. And stop everybody trying just to benefit their own ministries. We got people teaching that there will be a third temple. Literally, you got people telling that we are the third temple. We got people teaching that none of the laws are done away with. We got people teaching that all of the laws are done away with. We have people teaching that non-Jewish believers can keep the law if they want to. We got other teachers saying that non-Jewish believers only have to obey 7 laws. We got people teaching that non-Jewish believers follow all the laws until you get to Exodus chapter 25. And they even name a specific verse. And everything after Exodus chapter 25, verse 14, or whatever it is all for the Jews. And everything before that is all for the Gentiles. Okay? Can't imagine why people are a little confused about what's going on. And when we do that, we miss the whole point. Which is what I'm hoping when Bill and I are done here Sunday, that we will see what is the most important, weightier matters. And I believe that we need to, that both of us, I think Bill will agree with that we should be focusing on right now. We have people teaching there are 2 trees in the garden. That's pretty standard. But now we have a lot of people teaching there's only 1 tree in the garden. We have people teaching the earth is flat. And we have people teaching the earth is a disc. We have people teaching that the earth is hollow. We have people teaching that we all took the red pill and we're all in a celestial vortex. By the way, I didn't make up any of these. This is not comedy from Brad or whatever. There are websites that, how do you talk to someone that believes nothing is real? That's what, nothing's real, everything's just a mirage. And some of that comes from traditional string theory physics. There are 11 dimensions. One of the things that string theory did bring out, and I have it on my Area 51 series, is that they finally realized about 30 years ago, no, 1967, oh boy, time is flying, 50 years ago, that there's a dimension other than matter. Really? But then it turned into 11 of them, which the great Rambam, by the way, 1,000 years ago said that. Okay, if you're familiar with who he is. Okay. And you get to the 5th and 6th dimension, and then they say, in my beautiful balloon. No, I just kidding about that. But you get to the 5th or 6th dimension, they start folding on top of one another. And of course, they can all say what they want because most of the public's going, folding on top of another one. And so most of the public has no idea what they're talking about, so they can do. They can say whatever they want to say. That's the reality of things, okay? Let's move on. Once again, what can we do about this? Not much. Why? Removing the tares is not a function. We're not supposed to go out there and take the guys out. We're not supposed to store up a bunch of guns and so forth and then come blow them off the porch when we're supposed to produce fruit. That is our Great Commission. And I'm going to suggest to you that that's one of the things that has been corrupted. Even from New Testament times, the Great Commission, which is in Matthew chapter 28, I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. The Great Commission for you and me has not changed for 2,000 years. And the Great Commission is not going out and winning souls for Jesus. That is not the Great Commission. The Great Commission is to go ye therefore and teach all nations whatsoever I've commanded you, which he got from who? The Father, that he passed down to the Son, that Paul is following and admonishing you and I to follow him. No, follow him as he follows the Messiah. And the Messiah did everything his Father told him to do. And if we do that, then the last generation, Alvin, will see the same truth as the first generation. I know it's difficult for theologians to grasp, but that's the reality of it, is that the Father did things right in the first place. So there's restoring us back to those things. I'm admonishing you, believe next to nothing you read or see on the internet, including my ministry, including Bill's. There is, 1 Thessalonians 5, test all things. Bill or I say something you don't agree with, you don't understand, give us a holler. We make ourselves available. We're not, hiding in the bushes somewhere behind some sort of hashtag. Whatever. Do you have hashtag stuff?
I just discovered there is such a thing.
Oh, okay.
I still haven't used one, but I...
Oh, okay. I almost had a flashback of my druggy 60s when I heard that hashtag.
Yes. Probably should move on.
Oh, yeah, let's move on. They'll say, get out of that, get out of that. Okay, once again, know the person, read the book. What I mean by that, if you have a book on your shelf that your grandmother gave you, or you got, chances are that someone's manipulated that are pretty slim. But anything, including a copy of it on Amazon, that you read on the internet, any one of a number of things can be done with it. I'd rather, when I say read the book, that's ultimately the book that I'm talking about. But I'm talking about anything. Stick with the book. Know the person. Don't read something about what somebody said about somebody else and draw erroneous conclusions. Know the person, read the book. And the only way we're going to do that is when we come together in situations like this And therefore, we can look each other in the eye, and we can see. I can tell. I know Bill has been around long enough. He can tell as well. I can tell. When I'm looking at somebody, I can tell if what I'm saying is going right to the heart. You can tell. You can see it in their eyes. Now, some people give you that blank stare because they can't get here because it's blocked there. Okay? But there's a whole lot of people that you can tell that you're knitting your heart with them. You get to know the people. Gosh, I can't overstate that, and I probably will try. Now, we're going to probably finish. We're close to finishing because I know how these things are, okay? And we're going to schmooze after we're done tonight. Is that the idea? Schmooze, I mean fellowship? Yes. Everybody's going, what? It's an old Jackie Mason term, if you remember that. Okay. All right. This is what I call logical fallacies. This is kind of the fun part once again. What I want to suggest is that atheists and evolutionists, especially professors, okay, will lay this on your children at school. And these are things we also do to each other, Alvin, in our own walk. Because there's something about the human beings that eventually don't understand or don't recognize who the body of Messiah is. I believe that the body of Messiah still does not recognize as a body. I think it's a big word. We still don't really recognize that we're a body. And because we don't recognize that we're a body, then we have a tendency to have everything about me. Everything's about me. And the reason why is we'll talk about tomorrow. These are called logical fallacies. I'm going to use some Latin terms here that are very well-known Latin terms. And these are things that people say about particular things that they assume are true that are not true at all. And I'll give you some examples that we do. They're called logical fallacies. Let me start out with the first one. The first one is argumentum ad hominem. I know you're all familiar with this one. And of course, politicians never do this. But they eventually assume what they're saying is true because they attack someone's personal character or motives. Politicians never attack their opponent's motives, do they? In other words, an ad hominem argument is where the person didn't present any evidence whatsoever. They just attack the other person personally. And this does not mean what you're saying is true just because you attack somebody personally. Too many people use that as part of their evidence, and that's not true. That's why they're called logical fallacies. Argumentum ad ignoratio. This one, many of us are guilty all the time, and I just want all of us to be able to recognize it. Argumentum ad ignoratio, basically saying assuming something must be true because it is yet to be proven false. Example of this. Someone shows you something in Scripture and they say something like this. Prove to me I'm wrong. Show me in Scripture where I'm wrong. And just because someone hasn't proven what you're saying is wrong doesn't mean what you're saying is true. As a matter of fact, most people get scared the doodles out of them when the idea of coming up to you and suggesting what you're saying is wrong. So they never do. So they go on thinking that what they're saying is true because no one's ever come up. And 9 times out of 10, when you do show them, doesn't matter. They'll find some way to get out of it anyway. They just say that. It's a false humility. It's false humbleness to me. Now, I'm not saying everybody, because I've been guilty of it, but I do it very rarely because I think it's a silly statement. Show me in the Bible where I'm wrong. I guarantee you, no matter what we show them, they're not going to be wrong. It's just a false humbleness is what it is. All right. Argumentum ad nauseum. I know you're all familiar with this. Some people, if they say something over and over and over long enough, they start to believe it's true. They just say it a lot. It becomes true. Sometimes people will say something 10 years ago that wasn't true, but they've been saying it long enough, they forgot it wasn't true. Are you following me? Okay? These are very well-known things that we do to each other. Usually when someone sends me something, well, I'll get to that a little bit later. I see. All right. All right, so it's not true just because you say it all the time. This is something that's used quite a bit. I just used it with a say that. I want you to know when I give you these, that doesn't mean I'm not guilty of these. A couple of these I'm going to be guilty of 3 or 4 times before this weekend is up. I just want you to recognize it. Just because I quote Einstein doesn't mean it's true. Okay? But, for example, argumentum ad numerum. Believe something's true because 70% of the people polled. The reality with truth, my friends, if 100% of everybody on earth agreed with something, that still isn't just true. Just because, even if 100% of us agree with it, that doesn't mean that scriptures say something about following the multitude. So just because you quote some poll somewhere that says that still does not mean it's true, just because the people who were polled were duped into thinking something in the first place. This is the one I will be guilty of several times, and we all do this. Argumentum ad verecundiam. This means appealing to authority. To prove what you're saying is true, you appeal to an authority, like Einstein, or someone like that. Or an early church father. Or how about this one, a rabbi. We do this all the time. We put up a rabbinic quote. I'm going to do it a couple of times here, I'm pretty sure. And we dupe. Not on purpose, don't get me wrong, but we lull people into thinking, well, what he's saying must be true because Rabbi so-and-so said it was true. I have a saying I've said for years, I haven't said it in a long time, but it's still true. I only quote the rabbis when the rabbis agree with me. Okay, I've said that for a long time, but that's part of this whole thing. But that's the truth. What I'm trying to say is the only reason I quoted that rabbi is because he's thinking the same thing. That's the reality. That still doesn't mean that what I just said is true, Alvin, just because the rabbi said it. I see so many teachers put rabbinical quotes up there, and they don't, most of the time they don't mean to do it. I just want all of us to be aware of it. So we stop the cat fighting with each other. Just because someone said so-and-so said it still doesn't mean that it is true. How about argumentum ad logicum? Something must be false because a counter-argument has failed. In other words, no one's given you a counter-argument so far. So they believe something must be false because there's been no counter. You just haven't heard the right argument yet. Are you with me? You haven't heard. You have to have universal knowledge to have all the arguments. I would be very careful I would choose very carefully which hill I'm going to die on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When it comes to me saying, I know this without a doubt, without any exceptions, I'm going to be very careful which thing I put that label on. Because some of that implies you have universal knowledge of all things. And so forth. And what you're saying is, I know everything, I have nothing else to learn. That's a problem. How about asserting the concept, pardon me?
I said means you're a teenager.
Yeah, that's right, means I'm a teenager. Exactly. Teenager in this. Consequent happens all the time. See, it seems logical that if A equals B, then if B is true, then A must be true. That seems logical, but that's a fallacy. That's a fallacy. Example, it is raining, A. B, therefore the street is wet. So the assumption is, if the street is wet, therefore it's raining. Yep. I'm saying look very careful for these kind of things when you read things, especially when they're trying to tell you that they've discovered something nobody on planet Earth has ever seen before. Until now. And they try to, most of these things, when I read things that people give me, to me, the mistake's always going to be in the first page, if I disagree with it. And if I disagree with it, it doesn't mean that it isn't true either. Okay? You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, me personally, usually the mistake will be in the opening page. Usually they will say something that they assume you already agree with, and then they build their whole case. Anybody ever play dominoes? I know Bill did. He played dominoes at the park station. I didn't know that until today. Something I didn't know about him. His hair is not real, did you know? It's okay. And so it's like dominoes. If you just assume that first domino is right, you can make all the other dominoes line up behind it. But if that first one's wrong, when it comes down, what happens to all the other dominoes? They come falling down. Usually it's something at the very beginning. Now these next three or four, are ones I totally made up. Okay, so I'm just letting you know that ahead of time. Okay, I totally made these up. Okay, how about argumentum ad studicus? The assumption, how many times have you had somebody walk up to you and say, well, I did a study on, and that phrase alone is the conclusion, well, if you did a study on it, it must be true. Everybody drop what you're doing. Got the conclusion right here, they did a study on it, so the argument's over. Okay? Just because you did a study on it doesn't mean it's true. No, I'm not trying to quash anybody doing studies. I mean, that's obviously what we all do. But don't assume it must be true just because you did that. Argumentum ad misdirecticus. This is something that atheists and evolutionists will use on your children. They'll actually, and I'm going to use a classic example of this later about people who say they ask you, or they believe there's no evidence of the existence of God. And when they pose their question, you notice right in the middle of it, they moved it from proving God doesn't exist to, I don't like God. Okay? They'll do that right in the middle of the question. You have to be very careful because they think they're stupefying you by presenting you evidence there is no God. In reality, they're just showing you we don't like your God. And I'll give you examples of that later. Because there is no evidence that there is no God. Let me just say that right out front. There is no evidence that there is no God. There's no teleological argument that, as a matter of fact, every true teleological argument will prove that. You can't not prove that God doesn't exist. So that means the onus is on you and me to prove that He does. Because the atheists are really out of the argument. They cannot prove that God doesn't exist. This is the great Francis Bacon's and the Voltaires and all the smart guys and the existentialists from the last couple of hundred years. They all realize in their own writings, we can't prove there isn't a God. Because that is a universal negative. Father, in the name of Yeshua, wherever that ambulance is going, whatever it's for, Father, we bind that. If there's somebody hurt, if they've been in a car crash or a heart attack, we intercede for them right now, Father, for you to raise them up and heal them. So when that ambulance gets there, they will be stupefied as to the fact that the person is in 100% shape because you healed them in your precious name. Amen. Amen. Okay, now, Mr. Ecticus, asserting the seminarius. Sometimes you'll have some of your Western religious friends think that what they believe must be true because that's what they learned in seminary. As a matter of fact, when I hear something from a pin-headed intellectual elite, that's usually pretty good evidence it's not true, but that's another story. Pretty soon they just pass things along because I've been there. Argumentum ad logicus fallacius laticus. That's people who think that what they're saying is true just because they use fancy Latin terms. Okay, let's move on from that. I should use that. All right. Just a couple more things and I'll let you go in 15 minutes. There is one certain barrier to truth, my friends, the assumption that you already have it. That will always be the barrier to learning, growing in the truth, because there is an assumption that you already have the truth. Everybody has their presuppositional biases. The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance. It's not ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge. Even if it's the which one got the diploma? The lion or the tin man? No, the straw man got the brain. Yeah, straw man got the brain. Okay. Paper didn't really have anything to do with it, did it? That was the whole point. Okay. All right. Nonetheless, there is nothing worse than having a beautiful hypothesis slaughtered by an ugly fact. I can tell you that will crush everybody almost every time. All right. Moving on. I'm not going to do this because I don't want to. Okay, we talked about the Great Commission. I want to close with this. Is everybody okay? Okay, nobody's falling asleep? Okay. Tomorrow, by the way, we will give breaks. And we give breaks primarily for two reasons. The first one should be obvious because Bill and I drink too much coffee. Okay. The second one is if you don't like us, it's your opportunity to escape unnoticed. You know, if you come back, and especially in this condition right here, if Bill or I catch you falling asleep, we will put something in your mouth. Just let you know. It'll be clean. Grasshoppers. That's clean. Okay, all right. Remember when we were talking, I just chose to close with this because tomorrow I want to get into the apologetics of work. And I said, I think Bill and I haven't quite decided what we're going to do. We kind of almost flipped the coin for tonight. But I imagine it'll be, tomorrow morning I would imagine it'll be Bill, it'll be back to me, and it'll be back to Bill, and we'll kind of go back and forth. And I think Sunday morning we're going to split it. I'll go an hour, Bill will close for an hour. Okay, you don't mind closing tomorrow? Okay, Bill will close tomorrow. Because when Bill closes, he makes you cry. Okay, never mind. But I want to get into the things that we're facing, proving the existence of God. Why God exists is so much sorrow and pain and wars and death and innocent people dying, babies. So why is all that happening if God's such a good God? Okay? And how do we know that the books that are in the Bible are true? How do we know any of these things are true? Those are the kind of things, I think, because of the internet, we better start passing down to our children, because they're gonna be facing, because of the internet, a greater challenge than you and I ever were challenged with. Because most of us, like I said, grew up as the baby boomers. We didn't. I know my generation didn't get a lot of teaching on atheists and evolutionists in our small little towns. There was no USA Today. There was no computers. There was the only thing you did back in the 50s and 60s is you had CBS, NBC, ABC, right? If you had enough tinfoil, you could pick up the Lutheran Hour on your UHF channel. Remember those days, okay? And if you wanted to know something, you went down to the library, because the pastor was always homiletic. Everything was homilies. Okay? And this is the way I grew up in non-evangelical churches. So everything by the Methodist preacher was always a homily. And you never really learned, you know what I'm saying, much of anything. Much less what Hindus believed, Muslims believed. We didn't know any of that stuff. We weren't taught those kind of things. And so therefore, our children are getting on the internet, and we're seeing some of the most god-awful things that you can imagine, and they walk away not believing in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob anymore. And you and I are going to stand responsible for that when the end times come. And so that's why I want to set the stage today that everything multiplies living. Everything multiplies after like kind. And the whole purpose of restoration is to bring it back to the way that Father did it in the first place. And I want to beat that dead horse as much as I can, because everything in the Bible living, including the Word, will be in exact harmony with that right there. Now remember I said that the first occurrence of good and very good is in relation to the creation, once again. And the creation starts out with each individual day being called good, which means don't add to that day. Don't take away from that day. I know what I'm doing, he would say. I know what I'm doing with the water. I know what I'm doing with the light. And maybe just a coincidence that even our understanding of physics today, that there's only three things you need to make a universe. You need energy, you need matter, and you need space. Those are the three things that you need to create a universe. So it may be just a coincidence in the beginning. God created, there's your energy, the heavens, there's your space, and the earth, there's your matter. Whoever wrote the scriptures knew exactly what you needed in order to bring a universe into existence. Even though Genesis chapter 1 does not technically give you the origin of the universe, it technically gives you all the information for where we are going to live, where the humans are going to be. Our part in this whole thing here on the earth. But nonetheless, those are the three things you need. And there's two more things you need to continue that process. What I'm saying right now, Richard Dawkins would say, Stephen Hawking would say, not that we need that. Remember what that's called? Argumentum ad verecundium. Okay? But nonetheless, physicists, even those who believe in electric universe and the plasma universe and ether and all that kind of stuff, do you know plasma and ether are all over your Bible? We'll talk about that in a minute. You know what ether is translated as in your Bible? The threshold. Okay? And we'll talk about that later, maybe in Area 51 or whatever. But nonetheless, the next two things you need are light and water. What a coincidence. Whoever wrote those opening verses knew when the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and He spoke, and there was light. We can prove that in a laboratory. We can take water, some of you heard me say this 1,000 times, we can take water, produce just the right resonating frequency, and create the entire spectrum of light in that water drop. Rainbow, whatever you want to call it, in that water drop. So that means what? You don't need light. Excuse me, you don't need the sun in order to produce light. What do you need? Sound and water. What a coincidence. First two things we get in Genesis chapter 1, 1 and 2 is sound. And then he said, let there be light. That comes from sound surrounding an electromagnetic field on a water drop will produce light. I remember I was in California a few years back and I was talking about these things and some guy jumps up out of the room, which I always encourage. Don't you? Some guy jumps up and he goes, this is proof that whoever wrote the Bible doesn't know what he's talking about. I said, oh, this ought to be fun. Okay, share with us, gentlemen. He says, well, anybody knows you can't have light without the sun. And then he kind of went, okay. So I just said one thing. As a matter of fact, it was about 11:15 at night. I'm getting ready to finish up. And we're in a big gymnasium. It's about 11:15 at night. And I said, sir, can I ask you a question? He says, yes. Is it light in here right now? That was the end of the conversation right now. See, we just need to train the young people to be able to deal with this kind of ignorance about how the world works. It sounds funny to them. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Is the sun shining in this building right now? Is there light?
Yes.
Where's the sun? See, what you need is energy. You need quanta light, which is called photons. You need little bitty light particles called photons. Which, by the way, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. I told you when I do that, I was going to end this very quickly. See, you don't need light. You don't need the sun in order to produce light. You need energy to produce light. Now, we're not even talking about the spiritual aspects of Yeshua being the light of the world. I'm not even getting into that. I'm talking about the physical part of it, because our Father knows exactly how the physical universe works. He's smarter than we are. And He keeps trying to show us over and over and over, and as the centuries go by, scientifically we have all our little fads and all our little thoughts, and the earth is this, and the earth is not, and this and that. But when the smoke clears, He's going to be right every single time, without exception. And so therefore we understand that all these things are true in the beginning. So that's why we need to produce light. So the point being is that when He's done with that day, He's saying, do not add to the water. Do not take anything from it. Water is 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, right? 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. What He's saying is don't add anything to that. I know what I'm doing. That's what water is. Don't add to it. Don't take away from it. Don't add an oxygen atom. Don't you do that. Remember He says do not add to my word. You're going to take away from it. What happens if you add an oxygen atom? You have H2O2. You have something that none of the sea creatures can live in, but if you swim in it for a couple of months, your teeth will be nice and white and bright forever. Okay? Hydrogen peroxide. Okay, but animals, the sea creatures can't live in that. So He says don't mess with these things. He did the same with the male and female. He creates a male. He produces a female from the male, obviously. But when He's done, He says the male is good. Meaning what? Do not add to the male. Do not take away from the male. I know exactly what I'm doing. The male's got everything he needs. Don't add or take anything away. Now, some of you have been married for a while, may argue with that, but you leave that for marriage counseling. Okay? And He creates the female and says, do not add, do not take away from the female. I know what I'm doing. They're both good, which means what? They're completed for their purpose, but they're not what? They're not very good, because unless the male gets together with the female, they stop the life. Man stands over here, and the woman stands over here, okay? And they don't talk to each other. You ain't going to have babies, and life stops with those two. You understand what I mean? And so the idea is for them to get together. Okay, I'll just kind of leave it at that. And now you have light. Now it can be very good. So when the Father's done, He says it's very good, it's complete, and now He can do everything it's designed to do, except the men come along. And they start to change things. They start to manipulate things. And pretty soon that mutation multiplies after itself, and then the end doesn't look anything like the beginning. But the point I wanted to make is that in order for those three things, the water, the air, and the ground, to have life, He had to fill the waters with the sea creatures, fill the sky with the fowl of the heaven, and fill the ground with the seeds and the root. Now, in Hebrew, that's called maleh. Maleh. Mem, Lamed, Aleph. Maleh, the very first occurrence of maleh in Hebrew, in your scriptures, is the filling of the waters the filling of the ground and the filling of the heavens. Now, in Hebrew, the same word, maleh, is used to express the filling up of a glass with water and to fulfill a prophecy. So Hebrew uses the same term to describe something that really isn't related to each other. Filling a glass with water, but they use the same thing to fulfill a prophecy. The idea of fulfilling prophecy is to put the life into it. If something's prophetically said of the Messiah to come, and he comes and he goes through it, he does it himself, like dying on a cross, and raising 3 days later, according to the fulfilling of the prophecies of the feast about his life, he comes and lives it, now he's fulfilled it. Not ended it, he's put life into it. Because before that, it was just something they practiced over and over and over. They learned some things to it, but it wasn't living. He's living. And life always produces what? Life. And so therefore, he puts the life into it. So the fulfilling of the prophecy is him walking through. We know that there are still prophecies yet to be. The last 3 feasts, for example, are those yet to be. And do we all understand from a spiritual point of view that he will come and he will also be here and fulfill those 3 as well. The living Word of God will come and put life into it. Why is that important? Torah scroll. You're in a typical synagogue. Typical synagogue. You're going to have to pretend this is a Torah scroll. It's not my own, okay? So the readers come out, the cantor comes out, calls the readers up to read the Torah portion on the beat. And so therefore, he will give them a little yad. Actually, the first time I ever did this was with Joe and Golda, or Joe and... Yeah. First time I ever actually called up to do that. And of course, I walk up there and I go, well, okay, never mind. So thank goodness Joe, I think it was Joe, guided my hand. Because it's one of those things that didn't have life in it. I talked about it all the time, but I never actually lived it out, see? And so they have a little yad, which looks like a hand, and they point to it, and they use that. Of course, if you get the ritual explanation of that, so you won't defile the scroll. But the physical reality is what happens if you put your hands on antique things that are very old. Okay? So you point the yad. And in Hebrew thought, the people that wrote the Bible, if the reader came up and did not have a relationship with the author of the Torah scroll, they were just coming up rotely reading the Torah scroll. They didn't know the author. They were just doing it over and over and over again. Does this sound familiar? They called that the letter of the law and honoring him with their lips. A person who came up without relationship, read the Torah, that is called honoring him with your lips and the letter of the law. Now, if a reader came up and read with passion and dedication and motivation and commitment because he loved the author of the scroll with all his life and all his soul and all his strength, everything that was with him, that was called the spirit of the law when he read it, and it was called honoring him with their heart. Now, why is that important? Because Yeshua is going to tell us. Well, first of all, Yeshua turns to the religious people who Sabbath after Sabbath after Sabbath came up there and read from the Torah scroll. He said, you honor me with your lips, but your heart is far from me. So he wasn't getting rid of the reading of the Torah scroll. He was saying when you come up and read the scroll without life in it, without relationship. So Yeshua in Matthew 5:17 says, I did not come to destroy that Torah scroll. I did not come to destroy the Torah. I came to fulfill. I came to put the life back into it. The life was missing in it. And so that's why in Hebrew thinking, as opposed to Western Greek thinking, which most of us have been trained in, things are either this or that. It's either one or the other. And Hebrew thought, based upon the creation, which the Word of God put into effect, it's one before the other. When you go out into the field, you don't choose between the seed and the fruit. Because you got one and don't have the other, you're cursed. You have the fruit, you don't have a seed, you don't have to wait, you don't have to wait for anything to propagate, so it dies right there. If you have the seed but you don't produce the fruit, then therefore it just dies right in the ground. Everything stops it right there. So the whole idea of to produce based upon the field, since Yeshua said the field is the world, first you plant the seed, that can only be accepted by grace. The farmer plants the seed. The rain doesn't plant the seed, the farmer plants the seed. I know some of you heard this 1,000 times. That's the reason why, one of the reasons why I believe Yeshua was a farmer. Not the traditional carpenter idea, but he was a farmer, and we'll talk about that some other time. But you plant the seed first, then you produce the fruit. Then you consume the fruit, you take the seed, and you plant it back in the ground. That's the way it's supposed to go. But companies like Monsanto and Archer, Daniel Midland, people like that have come along and taught us that no more eating the fruit and saving the seed. You got to come back to us to get all your seeds. Now, I'm not going to carry a logical conclusion of that out. You can already imagine in your mind a religious system that doesn't want you producing the fruit and then eating the fruit and planting the seed. Don't you come there to keep getting more seeds. Okay? When the reality is that's the way the field works. All right? And once again, all of this doesn't work unless everybody in the field comes together. It's the reason why you have fellowships working together, because one of the big mistakes, and I will close here very soon, one of the biggest mistakes, and I've made it myself, the same kind of mistake as well, is trying to understand Scripture by simply identifying the meaning of words. You can't understand Scripture just by knowing the meaning of a particular word. Because sentences are like people, they're like families, they're like communities. They have relationships with each other. Every word has a family relationship with another word. Now that word in Hebrew is chavrim. Chavrim. The Hebrew word for syntax is karat. Syntax is a grammatical term that means the relationship that words have with each other in a sentence. Is it any coincidence that in Hebrew the word for friends and brothers is also the word for syntax? Because that's the way sentences are done. We may be good individually as ministries, we may be good individually as people, but we will not be able to produce life, tov mi'od, until we all work together. And so as far as I'm concerned, all those people out there that they may be right when the smoke clears, but everything they're doing is dividing everyone. That was an intellectual comment. I'm sure you all follow that comment. I don't want to get too melancholy here, so I won't do it. We'll get melancholy at the end, okay? Let's pray. Let's pray. Father, first of all, we thank you for this precious day, a day that you've created and made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. For you have created it. Thank you for this very day that we can rest and refresh ourselves and prepare ourselves for another 6 days. And we just give you thanks and honor that you've given it to us. Now help us to appreciate it in every way. Help us to grow together, to learn together, and to stand face to face and knit our hearts together and defend each other instead of tearing each other down. And we give you all the thanks in this special day. In Yeshua's precious name, amen and amen. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.